Our next speaker is also a very close person to me. Mandisa Thomas is the founder of Black Nonbelievers, Inc. They are a very, very outspoken and aggressive group for not just Black nonbelievers, but for everybody. Some of the things that they talk about and that they speak about in their speeches, especially Mandisa's, are important to everybody. She is also part of the planning committee for the Reason Rally. You can see there's a theme going here with the Reason Rally people. The people that are planning the Reason Rally are some of the most aggressive and the brightest people in the community. So we got the right team on it, and it's going to be exciting. Please welcome to the stage my friend Mandisa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, yes, let me get my hug. Yes, we are huggers around here. Now, I don't have on any fancy clothes for this presentation because I am working, like many of us in here. Thank you very much for the introduction, Mark. As he said, I am Mandisa Thomas, and I am the founder and president of an organization called Black Nonbelievers. And I'm basically here to give a resume and a rundown of what we do, what we have done, and what we plan to do in the future. Now, we'll make a note that this picture is from one of our general meetings, and there are more Black folks in that picture than there are in this room. That is a good and bad thing at the same time because this needs to change, but that is what we are working on. And instead of complaining about the lack of diversity that is with the secular community, we decided to take this into our own hands and do something about it. So just giving a rundown, is this thing working? Nope. So let me just tell you that Black Nonbelievers was founded in January of 2011. So I'm going to give a short history. We were founded as Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta because that's where we started. The concept came after a meetup, attending a meetup. My co-founder and I were the only two Black folks there. And we were talking about how in the Atlanta area, there had to be more of us. How many of you are familiar with the Atlanta area? So, you know, it's a largely Black city. There is still a very strong religious presence there, but we knew there had to be more of us. We knew there had to be folks who were either in church but no longer believed but felt trapped, or they were non-believers but couldn't find anyone else. So when we had our first general meeting in February of 2011, there were 15 of us in attendance. That was pretty monumental for a first meeting because that proved that our organization was necessary. And we revised our name and created a national platform due to popular demand for similar groups in different cities. So therefore, we shortened our name from Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta to just Black Nonbelievers. And that is how we became the national organization that we are now. Yay. Thank you. And we are actually, in addition to bringing out more of us, we are continuing a tradition of free thinking and humanism in our community that is rarely discussed. So we do highlight and we educate and we make people aware of historic Black humanists and free thinkers in our community, such as Langston Hughes. Who knows who Langston Hughes is? Please clap. Clap, thank you. Clap as I mention the names that are listed here. And he is noted for, if you look up his poem, Goodbye Christ, which is very powerful, I suggest you read it. And also Hubert Henry Harrison, who was dubbed the Black Socrates, back in the 1920s during the Harlem Renaissance. And he was noted for saying, "Show me a population that is deeply religious, and I will show you a servile population content to eat the bread of sorrow and drink the waters of affliction." Also, Lorraine Hansberry, who famously wrote the book and play A Raisin in the Sun. Thank you. And A. Philip Randolph, who was the chief organizer for the 1963 March on Washington, who rarely gets the credit that he deserves, especially as a humanist. So now we're going to talk about some challenges faced in the Black community, which kind of explains a bit more about why there are very few of us here, as well as very few that openly identify as atheists in our community. There are a lot of religiously identified in the Black community, and the Pew Research numbers verify this. There is a notion that religion and spirituality is inherent to life as an African American, and that there aren't any Black atheists. I will tell you something. I was invited to speak with a class at Morehouse College back in 2012. And the professor was white. I was glad he invited me. His class was Black. And I was actually the first Black atheist that any of them had ever encountered. When I asked them how many of them went to church, the entire class's hand went up. And even though it was a very good discussion, they actually told him that they had never met a Black atheist before seeing me. So it is problematic that to hear white folks say, "Well, I've never met or known a Black atheist." It is even more problematic to hear that from other Blacks. And that is one of the main reasons why we were founded. Most Black leaders and public figures are religious. There's no disputing that. And there's also these Chitlin circuit personalities that reinforce negative stereotypes about our community. And there was a time where society overall perpetuated these stereotypes about us. Unfortunately, we are kind of doing that to ourselves, and this is something that we're looking to change around. So I am just going to point out some of these people who are prevalent in our community. You may know some of them you may not. Who knows this guy? Yeah, that is Bishop T.D. Jakes out of Dallas, Texas, who runs the Potter's House Ministries. And also, for those of you who don't know, he's actually gotten his hand into movies. He has a production company that was responsible for remaking the movie Sparkle, which I refuse to see, because they actually made it a bit more wholesome and Christian, and I really couldn't stand that. And they're dubbing him the next Billy Graham. He also was responsible for producing the movie Heaven is for Real. Yeah. So they're kind of getting their hands into, entertainment. I mean, they've always had it, but now they're doing it a lot more to try to spread the message, which is a problem. This guy here, his name is Umar Johnson. He dubs himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Now, he is more of the school that I was raised in. I'm giving just a little bit of a background of myself. I was raised in what is called the conscious community, Black nationalists, grew up learning a lot about Black history and culture, about systemic racism and injustice. So what tends to happen in our community is that for those who have rejected Christianity, they've romanticized Black history and culture, and have actually turned it into sort of a hate tool against whites. And this is what this guy actually does. Now, he criticizes Christianity, which some people praise him for, but he's very homophobic. He's very anti-LGBT and very anti-feminism. So, and he calls himself trying to build a school for young Black boys, but because he is anti-progression, that is a problem. So he's another one that we have to be that we are mindful of and we have to look out for. This guy, who knows him? Yeah, that's Creflo Dollar, based out of Atlanta. Yeah, if y'all know who he is. He's the one who just recently asked his congregation for the $65 million jet. Yeah, he had the used jet, needed a new one, tried to do a crowdsourcing campaign for his members to give $300. He came under fire for that, but they ended up approving it anyway and tried to act like he was persecuted as a result. Very charismatic guy, and I think he's actually some sort of psychologist or psychiatrist. You know, if you've ever heard him talk, he's slick, but he's smart. And those are really the types that you have to watch out for because he has a huge following. This guy here. Yep, Mr. Steve Harvey. Mr. If we came from monkeys, then why are there still monkeys? And, you know, he has these relationship books, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. You know, he's on Family Feud. He's made movies. He's, you know, he's done his comedy, and I don't particularly find him funny. And I found him less funny when I heard what he had to say about atheists, which we'll see a little bit more later on in this presentation. But yeah. And last but not least, Mr. Tyler Perry, who has made millions of dollars in what I consider to be subpar entertainment. And he uses his character as Medea, as well as this whole Christian platform to produce this entertainment that mocks our community from not just from what I see, but also from what he's shown. So these are just some problematic figures in our community. And also, if you tell someone that you don't like any of these people, you are looked at as if you have two heads in our community, seriously. So now we're getting into the question of why Black, race, and gender-specific groups, because this often comes up within the secular community. I find that there are many who find it hard to even approach us because they see Black in our name. But it's plain and simple. Our voices need to be heard in our communities. Not just the Black community, but also the secular community. Again, we still have a diversity thing. We have a diversity problem or lack of it, and we need to address it. We do address specific issues that larger organizations may not have the time to address, although they should whenever possible. I think one of the best parts of this community to me is that we are diverse, not just in how we need to work on our diversity and how we look, but we are diverse in who we are and what we do. And so having specific groups that address certain issues and work on certain issues that are still important to all of us is a good thing. It would be nice if we could all get together and just talk about atheism or address atheism issues, separation of church and state, but there are other pressing issues that are important to respective communities, and we need to be aware of them and work on them together. It also encourages minorities to openly identify as atheists or other similar free thought label. It also makes it easier to find each other. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard at different events, I thought I was the only one. We hear that more often than not. And again, it's the best way to increase diversity, as I said before. So here's some correspondence that we've received. Most of it has been positive over the years, but I want to show you this one in particular. So for those of you who can't see this, it says, so what is this, a war against God? I can't believe you have the audacity to try to erase the one who created heaven and earth and all the things in it, including you and me. You breathe God's breath every morning, and you have the nerve to try to persuade others as well. Please change the name of your Black nonbelievers to simply nonbelievers. Our race has suffered enough. Now you want to say Black nonbelievers? Don't use our people to support your atheism, please. Yeah. This is the type of stuff that we hear from other black folks. But adversely, we've gotten one that was very good. To be honest, I'm not even sure that I'm a non-believer or a full-fledged atheist. However, I don't buy Christianity at all. And even if God existed, there is nothing I experienced in my personal life that indicates he is good. Also, being black, there is nothing in our history that indicates this either. Yeah. Everything that our culture has accomplished has been through nothing but will and determination and not the provident hand of God. Anyway, I'm going through a difficult time with my health, and the only support I have is my mother. So I'm reaching out feeling alone and a bit alienated. And for many of us organizers who run secular groups, we run into this a lot. So my hat goes off to my fellow organizers in this community who are helping others. So, thank you. So being members are employees, students, entrepreneurs, just your everyday people. We also have some writers in our community, some people who have produced works for the secular community. And in our literature and on our website, we are dedicated to helping to bring them out. Because in this community, there are a number of folks besides the four horsemen that are making contributions or who have made contributions to this community. And it is well past the time that we know who they are. We're looking to establish professional, personal, and supportive connections with fellow non-believers. We're also seeking better ways to interact with and communicate with believers about atheism and life as a non-believer. So not only do we support each other in helping others to realize they aren't alone, we actually help the personal development and how to communicate this better. So I'm just going to show some pictures of some of our past events. This was from our first general meeting where I said there were 15 people in attendance, all black. And this is me at our 2012 observation of the Day of Solidarity for Black Nonbelievers. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, I can give you more information later. This is at we have Halloween parties. This is at one of our Halloween parties in 2012. This was our Reason Rally after party in 2012. We were there at the Reason Rally, and I'm now happy to say that we are one of the sponsors for the upcoming Reason Rally in 2016. This is us when we featured Dale McGowan, the founder of Foundation Beyond Belief and the author of Parenting Beyond Belief and Atheism for Dummies. This is us at our Adopt a Highway Mile down in the Atlanta area. We also hosted who knows who Dr. Sakibu Hutchinson is? Yeah, we hosted her back in 2013. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she is the founder of the Black Skeptics group in Los Angeles. She's also the author of Moral Combat, Godless Americana, and she's now coming out with a new book. I'll have to look up the exact title, but I think it's about the Jonestown tragedy that took place back in 1978. And this was us at our 2014 observation and celebration of the Day of Solidarity, which featured speaker Jamila Bey. How many of you have ever been in a room with this many non-believers of color? Never? Okay. Well, hopefully that'll change soon. But as long as you know that we are out here and we have been successful and effective in getting us together. So I'm going to show our first recorded feature. Back in 2011, I was contacted by a film student, a graduate film student, about getting some of us to talk about our experiences on camera. Now, back then when we were first getting started, that was a very difficult task because there were many who were still very, very hesitant about speaking about their non-belief, understandably so. So, but I was able to get a group of us together, and we completed this project. And the young lady actually received an A on this project, which was a good thing. But I will tell you what was great about that. What was great about that presentation or that clip was that we actually received more support as a result of doing it. And we also connected with more people who, again, thought they were alone in their non-belief and as being Black. So we can skip over that. But since then, we were featured on a little show called CBS Sunday Morning in April of 2015 as a part of the Openly Secular Project. We have also been featured in documentaries, such as Contradiction. Who here has seen Contradiction? By Jeremiah Kamara, which talks about the dynamic of religion in the Black community. It is an excellent documentary, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in it. But also we were featured in a segment of, we were also featured in a segment called Atheist in the Bible Belt, which was produced by Atlanta Interfaith Broadcasters. And the producers were atheists, which was awesome, and they were working for a religious network. Now, from 2011 to 2013, when I had to gather folks together to do that project, whereas before it was like pulling teeth to get people involved, I couldn't get, there were so many hands raised that I had to actually turn people down. So in 2 years, that symbolized growth, not just in numbers, but also in people and how willing they were to actually talk about their non-belief and for it to be seen by a number of people. We were also featured on CNN.com, who here, I'm sure everyone here saw the documentary on atheists back in, February, March, that CNN produced? Okay, so there were a lot of complaints about that documentary, even though I thought it was great. But there was simply a lack of diversity in that program. So I was contacted by one of the CNN religion writers, and that is where Confessions of a Black Atheist came from on the website. So please do look it up if you can. I was featured in Jet magazine in April of 2012. Who here is familiar with Jet? Anybody? The African Americans for Humanism Billboard campaign back in 2012. And we also produced the Blackout Secular Rally along with Black Atheists of America in 2013. And here's just a picture of the billboard from the AAH Billboard campaign. And I was alongside Langston Hughes in that picture. And it was just a simple message. Doubts about religion, you're one of many. And the concept was to pair up a historic freethinker with someone who was current, to show that parallel and that there were historic Black freethinkers and now there are more of us. And here's just the Jet article from 2012. So just had to give you a visual of that. Our affiliations, for those of you who may think that we're a separatist group in some kind of way, which we are not. We are affiliated with Recovering from Religion because that is really what we are trying to help many of our people do, because they are still suffering from the after effects of belief. We're affiliated with American Atheists. We are one of their affiliate organizations. We are a member organization of Secular Coalition for America. They are right across from us out in the hallway. And Openly Secular. That is a part of our mission, to help people openly identify as non-believers. So we very much support this campaign. How many of you read the ESPN article on Ariane Foster? Now, I wish he was more affiliated with Black Nonbelievers, but I think it was extremely monumental to have a Black football player go on record and openly identify as a non-believer. He is actually the first active NFL player to do so. So that was groundbreaking. I highly recommend you watch that openly secular video if you can. Again, the Reason Rally 2016, we're a sponsor. And pretty much most atheist, free thought, and secular groups. I am the coordinator for the Atlanta Area Coalition of Reason, and we get together and we partner on different meetings, and most of our, pretty much all of our groups, our affiliates, are members, and they work with their local coalitions. So we are about being inclusive and working together. Our future goals and events. We're developing a project called New Turn. It was originally supposed to be secular solutions for recidivism, but I'm thinking about expanding that scope to just secular solutions in general. Because not only is there an issue or concern with areas as far as the criminal justice system, a passion of mine, or a subject of mine that is, or a subject area that is of passion to me, is sex and sexuality and how we view it in general as society. We are still very shameful of it, even those of us who are either non-religious or who have recovered from religion. And we also shame surrounding that subject, and that's something that needs to change. We provide a support base for local groups in various cities. Continue collaborations and partnerships with free thought groups. Basically, not saying we're trying to take over the world, but we hope to get there just a little bit at a time. And we also have a 5th anniversary celebration coming up in Atlanta in January of 2016. Oh my gosh, I put the wrong date, sorry about that. But we've been going strong now for the past going on 5 years. That is more than what I can say for some of the other groups of color in this community. And this has been one of our mantras, ain't no stopping us now. That is something that I tend to sing whenever I'm asked to. And it's very much a very motivational piece for us because it helps to keep us going. The support that we receive from the secular community has been nothing short of monumental, and I appreciate it not just as the founder and president, but just as a person, because it helps keeps me going as well. So what I wanted to show here was just a little montage or a collection of people who support us and some of our products. And as you can see, you don't have to be Black to support us. You don't have to be Black to participate with us. And you don't have to be Black to understand and empathize with what we go through, because we can certainly identify and we can certainly empathize with what we go through just as atheists in general, but certainly to understand that where we're coming from in our community, there are special areas that have been identified that we need to work on. And the movement, the community is changing. As you can see, it is just no longer old white men. We have more women. We have more young folks. We have more people of color. And it's going to take for all of us to support each other and work on this together, but certainly get used to the name, get used to the brand, because we are about getting out there and being heard and being seen. And that is just who we are. We are Black Nonbelievers. Thank you. Okay, looks like I have time for some questions.
Go ahead and come up here to ask your questions that I know you have. This is still grip and move, just like that. We've all done that or seen that before, okay?
I'm first.
Hey, Scott.
Where do you get your energy from?
I don't know. Well, let me just tell you this. I work 9 to 5. I work 40 hours a week. I'm a full-time employee. I have 2 sons that are 9 and 6, so I think they help. And I think just the people who support us, the people who say thank you, the people who appreciate what we do, and just the fact that this helps me just as much as people say I help them. Because I will tell you, to openly identify as an atheist has been liberating for me. And knowing that I've overcome a certain apprehension and fear in my own life, and knowing that I've had to overcome this feeling that I've been alone, it not necessarily with religion or belief, but in other areas, that really does help fuel me.
Well, it fuels you well because I'm involved in several groups myself, and I'm just a piker compared to what all you're doing right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, great talk.
Thank you.
I think you implicitly addressed what I'm going to ask you, but I'll ask you anyway.
Okay.
Because it's a matter of clarification. Atheists like ourselves will often confront believers by pointing out a lot of reprehensible passages in the Bible, such as the advocacy of slavery in Exodus. And I've heard arguments that goes along the line of if you're a white atheist, you shouldn't point out how the advocacy of slavery in the Bible contributed to the advocacy of slavery towards black people, because you're being out of line and you don't have their cultural background, for instance. And I would like to know what is your take on this?
I'm going to say that is partially true, because it goes beyond the passages in the Bible, which are horrendous and which are you're absolutely correct about. But there is a privilege that many whites have when it comes to pointing out the awful things in the Bible and not understanding that the church was supportive of the black community, or became a support base for the black community when the legal system and the laws were against us. So we're not just it goes beyond religion. It goes to society and being in America as a whole, because you have to look at the system of racism and the systematic injustice that was perpetuated and committed against blacks in this country. So understanding the role that the church played does become important within the narrative, and we certainly don't. I certainly acknowledge that. I don't disregard the role that the church played, even though I think the doctrine is horrible. But it can come from a place of misunderstanding why the church was so important to our community, even though it did do some harm. So I think just coming out the gate with, slavery was actually condoned in the Bible, and I don't understand how so many blacks can be religious when they were enslaved. Yeah, certainly, I don't understand it either. And I remember growing up thinking that too. But when you understand the pathology of how it was implemented, as well as the institution and the support role it played, and just for believers in general, I tend to be a bit more empathetic in general, because many believers, they don't believe necessarily because they want to, they feel like they have to. So there's a fear there, and there's a sense of obligation. And so, we have to take this into consideration. Certainly, when someone is coming at you, then the gloves may come off. And there is a way to ask the question, or to even ask if you are aware that the Bible condones slavery, because guess what? Many believers don't know that. Many believers have never read the Bible. So guess what? They don't know what's in it. but there is a good way to be tactful about it without necessarily berating anyone. So I would say that it depends on your approach. It depends on what you know about Black history and culture, which is something that I encourage everyone in this room to be at least a bit well-versed on, or at least educated about.
Thanks a lot. Very enlightening.
You're welcome.
I was sort of disappointed because I kind of like Steve Harvey and I kind of like Tyler Perry. So I sort of wanted to hear more about that. Mm-hmm. And another Black leader is Al Sharpton, who mm-hmm. also debates against atheists. And mm-hmm. and I, in general, I kind of like him. And I wonder if you have something to say, because it seems like there's so many Black leaders that are against atheism that you just have to kind of say, I have to overlook that. And what would you say?
We don't have to overlook that. I wish there were enough of us, and hopefully there will be more of us in the future to combat these guys. I used to have Al Sharpton in this presentation, but he recently was speaking to being a bit more progressive, especially when it became the LGBT issues. So I kind of took him out of that. And there are some that are worse than he is. So I won't say that all of the leaders and public figures in the community are that bad, but unfortunately, they know how to reach most of our community, which is through praising God and touting God everywhere, which kind of sucks, because if it comes to the issues of our community, then we really need to have the conversation about how religion and the church it's the elephant in the room conversation about how damaging it is now. But unfortunately, we still have a ways to go in getting people to openly identify and getting us to come together so that we can become that force to where we can combat these guys. So Sharpton, I don't necessarily care for him all the time, but there are some things that he's kind of wavering on that I can say that I have a little bit more respect for him now. Yeah.
All right. Mandisa, awesome as usual.